So in this video, I'm going to be attempting to blackboard 3 minds round. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be reading out some Reddit stories. Cut to the chase and let's hop right in. I intentionally buy food my roommate can't eat. So I have a roommate, both female in our 20s. She's not only my roommate, but my best friend of several years. We also live in a city where we both aren't originally from. To note, she earns more money than I do. She's a vegetarian, and I will eat almost anything. We both have good appetites, but my roommate definitely eats more than I do. She's way taller and more active than I am. We buy groceries as a whole, I'll buy here and there, and she will too. We share everything and it's worked out and still does for many years now. Sometimes we buy things just meant for ourselves and have lived long enough together to know that the random single tin of tuna is just for her and so on. But this usually applies to things we buy in small quantities. This way also means I 9 out of 10 always buy things for both of us can eat, making my diet also 90% vegetarian. I don't mind. If we buy something sweet, no matter the size, there is an unspoken rule not to eat it unless it's been offered to share. The other day, I bought a large pack of yogurts, and when I came to get one the other day after work, there was only 2 left. Although I can't complain since I did say she could have some, this has been a common pattern. I do joke sometimes, like, dang bro, you ate 6 yogurts in 12 hours, must be some kind of diet. But I have never said anything firmly for a couple of reasons. One being that she buys more things, she eats the most, so she happily buys the most. But this also means I feel like when I buy things, I automatically have to say no since I'm constantly enjoying things she buys. Now, this isn't too big of an issue whatsoever, and I go out of my way to buy things I know she'll like happily. But sometimes I do want to buy a huge multi pack of cheese and onion rolls and eat them all for myself. To find my way around this, I have started to buy things that purposely have meat in them without worrying about it being eaten, such as pork and chicken dumplings and an entire pack of pork sausages. I still make sure to buy most things for both of us, but then I'll get a large multi pack of something that contains meat so I can eat it all for myself. Right now, I'm enjoying my large pack of sausage rolls. Of course, my roommate doesn't say anything about it, and when she buys things that are a meat alternative, I intentionally do not eat it as well. It's just a small way I've found to be greedy without feeling guilty. Honestly, I feel like as far as confessions go, this isn't that bad. Especially when you consider the fact that both of them make their own money, they pay bills, I'm assuming evenly, even if one makes more than the other. It's like you're gonna use your money to buy the food that you want, so you might as well get to enjoy it. Personally, if I was in this situation, I'd probably be a little bit more I'd probably be a little bit more strict about it. I've heard horror stories about roommates who have done similar things to this. One of my buddy has a roommate and he's considering buying a mini fridge just so his friend doesn't eat all of his snacks, which is insane to me whenever I think my buddy works more than he does, but I guess that's besides the point. It's whenever you have roommates, it's just about respecting each other and your boundaries. And a big part of that is food. It seems to be that these two buy food just for the house, but I feel like most roommates just buy things specifically for themselves. So it's cool that they're able to at least be cordial about it. And like I said, this story is a little bit tame, so let's see what we can get into on to the next story. Am I overreacting? No kids at our wedding. So I just want to start by giving some context. My girlfriend and I are not engaged. We have been dating for almost 3 years now, and I plan on getting engaged once I finish my master's. Yesterday we started talking about future plans, and because I just got back from my sister's wedding, we started talking about what we would want at our wedding. She stated that she did not want any kids under the age of 10 in our wedding. We are both nearly the youngest in our families, so this ask would potentially make it harder for a lot of relatives on both of our sides to have to figure out childcare. Personally, I have never heard of a wedding specifically excluding kids. Her reasoning for not wanting kids at the wedding is that she's worried about kids disrupting the ceremony or messing up the decorations, and most importantly, worried about her mom making it about nephew's name's first wedding and not our wedding, which I will admit is a real possibility. This conversation blew up into a way bigger argument than it likely should have, but I was worried about people potentially not coming due to us putting up extra barriers for a wedding, and I don't know if either of us are willing to budge on this. So, my initial verdict is not overreacting, but I do understand both perspectives. On the one hand, you do want your wedding to be about you and not have it be about your nephew's first wedding. And I do know that in-laws are pretty infamous for doing the worst thing possible. So just in general, so it makes sense to me that an in-law would be willing to do something like this and basically make it about something completely different than what the main objective or goal of this was, which is, your child getting married. But on the other hand, kids kind of do suck. And in the comments of this post, a lot of people were talking about how child free weddings are a real thing. So the girlfriend in this situation is valid in wanting something like this because you don't really want a kid to ruin your wedding whenever, like, giving your vows and then you just have a kid yelling in the background. That would really ruin your special moment. Personally, at my wedding, I'm not going to put a restriction on bringing a child or not because, like OP said in their post, childcare is not a cheap thing at all and it's not exactly easy to find. So I wouldn't want people not to come to my wedding just because they couldn't get either a babysitter or their kid in a daycare or whatever. So personally, I wouldn't do it. But like I said, I do understand the want for not wanting to have kids ruin your special day. But yeah, man, I guess that's just me. What would y'all do in y'all's situation? Would you just agree with your partner, or would you push to have it to where kids can come to your wedding? Am I the jerk for refusing to call my income a temporary hobby when my cousin asked how I bought a car? I make a living through online game markets. It's mostly MMO economy, digital goods, tradings, leveling up, and other services I'm capable of providing within the games I play. I know it sounds strange to people outside the field, but this has been my main source of income for several years now. I pay taxes, rent a place, bought myself a nice car, save money in case something goes wrong, and my income is gradually growing. It's not just sitting in front of my PC and playing all day. It involves clients, scheduling, bookkeeping, some risks, market monitoring, competition, and plenty of routine work. I graduated from college with a degree in cybersecurity, but I didn't get to work in that field full time. I find it interesting, but more like a hobby. I didn't want to sit at a job that didn't suit me for 40 hours a week just so my job title would sound decent to my relatives. My family is very career focused. My brother works at a law firm, my cousin in finance and corporate. They don't yell at me or anything like that, but they constantly treat my work like it's just a phase. My mom said it's awkward for her to explain to people what I do because it doesn't sound stable. Recently, my younger cousin asked me how I was able to buy a car. I answered honestly that I make money online through game markets. But I immediately added that it's not easy money, it's not a guarantee, and it's no reason to neglect school. I said that I managed to turn a niche I understand well into income, but that doesn't mean everyone should do the same. Later, my mom called me and said I should have called it a temporary hobby. According to her, now my cousin can think that he can just sit around playing games and not build a proper career. I said I wouldn't lie about my life just to make the adults feel better. I didn't advertise it as easy money, I just refused to pretend that my work wasn't real. My brother later wrote that I romanticize gaming and that one day I'll regret not having a normal resume. I understand that my job is really strange and may seem unstable, though you can be fired at a normal job too. But that's how I pay bills, taxes, rent, savings, and bought a car. It drives me crazy that my family sees the results of my work but still calls the work itself toys. So, kind of surprisingly, the comment section here is pretty split, and they brought up a lot of things that I just didn't think of at all. The main thing being is that this probably goes against all TOS on most MMO games. A lot of people are calling him a jerk in the comments because he's most likely just breaking TOS in a bunch of games, and on top of that, he's kind of ruining the player experience, and not just him, but people who do this in general tend to ruin the MMO experience in a lot of games. But personally, in this specific situation, I don't think they're being a jerk just because I think their family doesn't take their money seriously. So if I was in this position where I was making money online through something that I really enjoyed doing, I would also feel very annoyed, or at least I feel like I wasn't being taken seriously. So I can understand why OP would feel that way. But again, that might just be me because a lot of people in the comments are really adamant that this person is the jerk in this situation. But my initial thought is that they aren't being a jerk, but their hobby slash job does kind of suck. Am I the jerk for not giving my parents half of my lottery winnings? For context, I won approximately £4 million earlier this year from the lottery. Currently, the money is diversified into several index funds. I was planning on giving them £750,000 as a thank you, but when I mentioned that as a counteroffer, they got mad and started calling me selfish. I'm 19, my mom is 47, and my dad is 49. Without going into too much detail and making this longer than necessary, I only waited around a week before I told my parents. They were excited and so was I. It was all going fine until they started talking about the money as if it was theirs. They were talking about retiring, going on holiday, buying a boat and a new car, traveling the world, etc. I asked them how much they expected to have. Stone cold face, they said half. I understood that with giving them half, having 2 million left is already enough, but why should they be entitled to that? I know they're my parents and we've had a great relationship, but to me, £750,000 seems like it's enough as they already have their own savings and a paid off mortgage. So am I the jerk for refusing to give my parents half of my winnings? Money, man. It really is the root of all evil in the world. People come into a large sum of money, and it's almost impossible not to become like a bad person. Not calling OP a bad person, but once people start talking about a lot of money, everyone becomes a lot different, and it kind of sucks whenever you have to deal with that within family. My initial reaction is that OP is not the jerk here for pretty obvious reasons. OP won the money, not the parents, so they're not entitled to give it to anyone. Some people would say that they should give it to their parents, like half of it, but they're basically giving away a quarter of their money already, and the parents aren't happy with that. Especially since this guy is so young, and on top of that, seems like he has a good head on his shoulders, seeing as most of the money is split within a bunch of index funds. It kind of sucks that his parents expect him just to give him half of the money, since he obviously has long term plans for it, but the parents see it as rightfully theirs. So, in my opinion, this guy is not the jerk in the situation, and most people seem to agree in the comments of this post. A lot of people are saying, like, don't ever tell people you win the lottery, regardless of who it is, because things will change. And that really does suck that whenever a lot of money comes into any situation, people just change drastically. And it's usually never for the better, it's usually for the worse. Not in every situation, but that just seems to be a very reoccurring issue. The OP did have an edit to their post, and the argument seems to still be ongoing between the two parties. The parents still feel entitled to having half of the winnings, and they refuse to take the £750,000, which to me is just ridiculous. But the OP seems to want to give their parents money anyways, just because, they feel like they should give their parents money, which is fair. All things considered, I'm just hoping that the parents come around to understanding that OP does care about his parents and is trying to help and meet them somewhere halfway. But hopefully they'll understand that it's his money. He's allowed to choose what he wants to do with it. And he's not leaving his parents out, but it's not fair to him whenever they're trying to control half of his winnings. Alright, so this one is just kind of silly. I've been pretending to be vegetarian for 2 years. I was 24, moved to a new city, found a new friend group, and the second time hanging out with them, someone offered me meatballs. I wasn't hungry, so I said, "Oh, I don't eat meat," because it was easier than explaining. Within 20 minutes, 3 people had told me how great that was. The host apologized for not warning me, and I figured I'd correct them next time. Next time came, I didn't, or I just forgot since it was a drinking get together. I can't even explain how, but by year 1, it was part of my personality. People remembered, so they planned around it. I eat meat at home and restaurants alone. I've ordered chicken sandwiches in drive-thrus 3 cars away from someone I know. I was playing Jackpot Daily on my phone in a Wendy's parking lot last month, watching out for a coworker's car because I knew she got coffee at the gas station next door. 2 of these people were my closest friends. One is in my wedding next year, and she's planning my bachelorette party and asked yesterday what kind of restaurant to book, and I said anywhere with a good vegetarian options, like it was a true fact about me. I cannot tell them now. They would not be angry about the meat, but I know they would be hurt about the time, or rather how long I let it go on. How does anyone get out of a long lie like this, or do you just keep being the person you pretended to be until it becomes true? This is insane. And also, OP is vegetarian now. There is no way to come out of this, or at least I don't think there is. You can't just tell them that you've been lying about being vegetarian for 2 years because they'll think you're like insane. Or they'll think like they just won't trust you afterwards, I feel. So at this point, if I was 2 years into this bit, I would just become vegetarian. I would give up on meat. Honestly, tofu is a good substitution. It tastes pretty good. It's just hard to cook with. It's cheaper too, so you'd probably save a lot of money with it. The comment with the most upvotes did make a really good point. They asked, how is saying that I don't eat meat easier than just saying I'm not hungry? Which is a crazy start to begin this 2 year long lie. After looking through the comments a little bit farther, someone said that you could just stop being a vegetarian, like choosing to say, hey, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. And while that can work, I feel like if I was 2 years into the bit where I just wasn't eating meat around my friends, I would just commit even farther. Like, I'm just vegetarian now. There's no going back for me. And there's just no way that it was easier than saying, "Hey, I don't feel like eating meatballs right now." One thing that this does have me thinking about is, what does the fiance think? This person's getting married and I'm assuming hangs out with their fiance and friends. So does the fiance just like play along, or does the fiance like slip up and forget and sometimes they'll like try and slip the meat, and then the friend group is just like, dude, this is your future wife. You should know that she doesn't eat meat. Some of these things are just very funny to think about whenever you're this far into a bit. So my immediate reaction when I first read this post was absolutely not. Am I overreacting because my husband ate my egg bites? My husband and I both work full time. Yesterday I was off after I worked a 7 day straight stretch. I did some meal prepping yesterday so we'd have food for the week and on vacation. I made egg bites, burritos, a batch of rice, and a batch of beans. I'm vegetarian and gluten free. He is not. My burritos have beans, rice, cheese, and vegetables on gluten free tortillas, and my egg bites have vegan sausage and no crust. I made myself 14 burritos and 25 egg bites. His burritos are on regular tortillas with chicken and cheese, rice, and vegetables. His egg bites have pork sausage and a crust. I made him 25 burritos and 60 ish egg bites. I put mine in black containers and wrote my name on it. I put his in red containers with his name on top. I specifically said to him whose was whose, and I always do red for his and black for mine. I get home and I'm starving because I forgot my lunch this morning and I worked 10 hours without eating. I went to go grab an egg bite. He ate 20 of them and 2 of my burritos. I burst into tears. Now I need to stay up late and meal prep all my stuff all over again. I told him I was furious. He had the nerve to say, I was wondering why you didn't put a crust on my egg bites or meat in my burritos this time. I told him to give me money from his personal account to replace the ingredients and that he has to clean the kitchen while I cook. He says I'm overreacting and being mean to him and that I always blow things out of proportion and treat him mean over nothing. Genuinely contemplating beating him with the skillet right now. Am I overreacting? Not overreacting, not overreacting at all. Personally, I am so mad for OP because this just sucks. This entire situation sucks. OP was working for a week straight, and whenever they had time off, they chose to not only cook for themselves for the week, but for themselves and her husband. And the way that the husband repaid her was by eating only her food, or at least that's what it sounds like, that he only ate her food, which is a terrible way of saying thank you, you know? And on top of all of that, the containers had their names on them and they were color coded, and they obviously do this very frequently if she has a color of container for each of them. So the husband should know by now which containers are his and which ones are hers. And realistically, if you know your partner is vegetarian and she meal prepped for both of you, and whenever you take a bite out of something and it has only vegetables, I feel like that would immediately send signals to your brain saying, hey, Maybe I'm eating the wrong thing here. Personally, if I was OP, I just wouldn't meal prep for my husband anymore because obviously the husband doesn't respect or appreciate her for doing this for him. Because meal prepping is not easy, especially whenever you make 60 egg bites, and that's just for him. She made herself 25, which puts the total egg bite count to be at 85. That is a lot of cooking, and that's just the egg bites whenever she made a lot of burritos as well. So until the husband actually chooses to respect her time and effort, I wouldn't meal prep for him. This one just honestly, it just makes me so upset. Maybe just because I care a lot about food, but overall, I just think that this is a pretty terrible thing to do to your partner, especially after they put so much work into doing this for you after they worked 7 days in a row. So yeah, after like talking it through a little bit more, I really do think that OP is underreacting here and should kind of put her foot down to be respected a bit more. Because if she bursts into tears after this, I just feel like this is not the first time something like this has happened. Am I overreacting for my mom taking something from my house? For context, I'm a 30-year-old woman, my husband and I live in the same town as my parents, and we're very close. This is such a small thing, but it's weirding me out. My mom and I own the exact same basket from Target. She keeps hers in her entryway for keys, and I keep mine in my lunchroom for wool dryer balls. About a year ago, while I was at her house, I remember joking, "We have the exact same basket. How funny." A few weeks ago, I asked if she had any bleach tablets I could borrow. While my husband and I were both at work, she dropped them off in our laundry room. A day or two later, I noticed my basket was missing. I couldn't find it anywhere. We have 4 kids, so I figured it got moved and didn't think much of it. Then a few days later, we went to my parents' house for dinner, and I noticed my mom now had 2 identical baskets in her entryway instead of one. I casually said, "Oh, you have 2 of those laundry baskets now? Like I have one?" She just said, "Yup," and moved on. No explanation, no reaction, no nothing. Now I'm sitting here wondering, did she somehow think I had taken her basket at some point and was taking it back? Did she accidentally grab mine while dropping off the bleach tablets? If it was an accident, why not mention it when she realized she had already got hers? Or am I completely overthinking a $10 Target basket? I'm not even mad about the basket. I genuinely don't care about the basket itself. I'm just confused with the situation and slightly weirded out by the idea that someone came into my house and took something without saying anything. Would you address it or just let it go? Alright, so honestly, I feel like for there to be an overreaction, there has to be a reaction to begin with. And honestly, it doesn't really sound like OP has done much here. Maybe overthinking might be the better word because I do think that they are overthinking this. Clearly, the mom took it. It could have been by mistake, it could have been by accident. And I get that OP doesn't want to just accuse her mom of stealing from her. But you can just ask, "Hey, did you take my basket?" And it would really just solve the issues pretty quickly. And that seems to be the general consensus in the comment section. Everyone's just saying that OP needs to ask their mom if they took it. Some people are even suggesting that she might have dementia, which I don't think it's that deep. I just think the mom took it and it could have very well have been an accident. So yeah, my final verdict is that OP is not overreacting here, but definitely overthinking the situation. And I think the best thing to do here would to just be to ask the mom if she took the basket or not. And if she did, then you get the basket back. And if she claims she didn't and it doesn't go any farther, like the mom doesn't just steal things more consistently, then just buy another basket. But that might just be me because I just am not generally a confrontational person. But I do think that OP should just ask her mom if she took the basket or not. And I think that OP was just overthinking the situation. I almost broke down crying in front of a rude customer. Am I overreacting? I know working retail is supposed to make you tougher or whatever, but honestly, I think it's just making me emotionally exhausted. This older lady came in last night trying to return something without a receipt or the card she bought it with, and so I tried explaining as nicely as I could that our register literally would not let us process returns without proof of purchase, which I'm sure makes a lot of sense. I was genuinely trying to help her and even asked my manager if there was anything else we could do because she seemed agitated. But she randomly started getting louder and louder, telling me to do the job I'm paid to do and saying my attitude is the reason I'm still working for minimum wage at a mall. Then she keeps rambling and saying that I can't mistreat customers who pay for my bills just because I have a pretty face, and I swear at this point I was so confused, just ready to run off and cry in the back. It honestly made me want to cry because I wasn't even rude to her at all. I think my face just naturally looks annoyed when I'm nervous, and people always assume I have an attitude when I don't. I swear some customers walk into stores already wanting someone to take their anger out on. I'm literally just a 22-year-old girl trying to get through my shifts and pay rent. I can't keep doing this. Retail, man. It is not the best place to work. It is generally some of the easiest work you will ever have, but there will always be a bunch of time crunches. There will always be a bunch of managers breathing down your neck. And by far the worst part of it is the customers. That goes for retail and fast food, and maybe just customer service in general. Whenever you have to deal with customers, it just makes your life 10 times more complicated. I also have a retail job. Luckily, the store I work at isn't nearly as bad as other ones, and I feel like I have it pretty easy, all things considered. But I still have had my fair share of bad customer experiences, even whenever you're trying your best to just help them out. There was this one time I was working and I was stocking something. A customer came up to me and asked me if we had any of these crackers in stock. I checked to see what crackers she was looking at, and it was ones that were on sale and were moving really fast. And I checked our balances on them, and they were very low. It's either they were very low or they were at zero. So I tried explaining to her how we don't have any in stock, and if we did, the balance was low enough that the chances are that they're just in people's carts. And whenever I told her that, she got very upset and said that every time that she comes to our store, there's always something out of stock. And I'm assuming she mostly goes for the sales items, which is fair, but those are the ones that move the fastest, and we tend to just be out of stock of them pretty quick in the day, especially if it's on one of the busier days throughout the week. So that after I politely explained to her how we most likely didn't have any in the store, she got really upset at me and asked me if I knew the corporate phone number, and I told her I didn't know it off the top of my head, and that seemed to really annoy her. I just don't know any random like associate who would know a corporate phone number off the top of their head. So I told her, "Hey, I can get one of my managers to come by if you want the number." And she just looked at me like scoffed and then walked away. Personally, I don't think OP was overreacting. There are days where you just need to like wind down after work and just decompress because dealing with customers all day on top of poor management and just high expectations with not that best of pay, it's honestly just not worth it. Basically, anytime someone complains about retail, I just recommend that they get a new job. And I know that's not easy, but the best way you can do it is start by investing in yourself, either going to school or just doing stuff that you're passionate about. And usually, if you're passionate enough about it and you dedicate enough time to it, it can work out very well. Of course, that's not always the case. So, usually, going to school is the better option. But it's just never a good idea to stay in retail unless you are consistently and constantly climbing the corporate ladder. But even then, that's very hard to do. My wife has discovered that I am grape blind. I know that title sounds dumb, but it will make sense. I don't just like grapes. As Gavin Free said, I freaking love grapes. They are the best. Like, if there are grapes, I graze on them to the point where no one else gets any. It's a real problem. Thankfully, my wife is not a big grape person, so it works out. That said, I found out last night that my wife has been running an experiment on me, and what she found is this. My brain apparently will not acknowledge grapes if they are not immediately in my direct line of sight, and it's just grapes from what she has found out. According to her, this started months ago after we had another mini argument about how I wasted grapes. This mini argument usually happens because I put the groceries away and would put the bag of grapes on a shelf in the fridge. And then a couple days later, she would move them to one of the drawers. By that point, I had already grazed like 75% of the bag. And then by the weekend, the remaining grapes are squishy and I don't like the texture. The mini argument would happen, we would then get more grapes, and the cycle would continue. My wife, being the amazing person she is, wanted to figure out why this kept happening, so she started experimenting. What she included, but was not limited to, was this: hiding the grapes fully slash partially behind other items to see if I would take any, bringing up grapes to the store and then steering me in odd directions to see if I would still seek out the grapes, would not get grapes so as to test with the other fruit, various containers with or without lids. After months of this, she found that any fruit that I liked beyond grapes can be put anywhere in the fridge or in any container and I will seek it out with zero problems. However, with grapes, if they are not in the bag or washed in an uncovered bowl and basically in my immediate line of sight while opening the fridge, they are more or less become a blind spot and go to waste. Since switching to putting them in an open bowl on the top shelf, I have not wasted any grapes. Do I think my wife is a crazy person? Yes. Do I love her for figuring this out? Also, yes. Do I think she did it partially to stop wasting money? Yes, and I'm here for it. And to be clear, as far as I'm aware, there's no like trauma or anything related to this. Like grapes didn't murder my father or something, so no princess briding for me. Honestly, this story is just kind of cute. And really, it's just kind of silly that I'm sure I've done stuff like this before. If something's not in my direct line of sight, this happens to me all the time with my girlfriend. She'll be pointing something out to me and she'll point at it, and I'll be staring directly at it, and I am just not seeing what she is looking at. And it usually ends in her having to go towards the thing and then literally lay hands on whatever she's talking about, be it just like a random object or maybe even a person if we're talking about like one of our friends. I do think it is a little crazy how much effort the wife put into this though. She used the entirety of the scientific method to determine if her husband was grape blind, and that's kind of hilarious. I just said that like backhanded, and I wasn't really being serious, but I did just look up what the scientific method is, and she kind of just really did follow it, and it's kind of hilarious. The first step being ask a question, being something like, is my husband the grape blind? The second step is to do background research, and that's obviously just knowing her husband and knowing his tendencies. Step three being to form the hypothesis, and it's really just if I hide grapes, my husband will not find them. And the fact that there is a very well working hypothesis at play here is just like chef's kiss. And step four is obviously doing the experiment, and she did that for 4 months. The next part being analyzing your data and drawing a conclusion, which she did figure something out. And then she communicated her results with her husband. It's just very funny how much she actually followed the scientific method. I know that earlier in this video I said that if I was lying about being vegetarian, I would just commit to the bit, but this is one of those things where I don't think I could commit this much. Like, my sense of curiosity is not that deep to figure out if my husband just cannot see grapes and then he won't eat them. Like, I feel like I would just be doing so many other things before that comes to my mind. This sounds like a great marriage, though, and I'm really happy for OP and his wife. You actually made it to the end of this video. That's insane. Thank you. If all went to plan, this should be my first video on this channel, and I hope y'all liked it okay. I know my audio quality isn't the best right now, but that's mostly because it's the first time I'm ever working with like an actual microphone, and I'm hoping to learn as I go. I'm gonna try and post videos like once a week, similar videos to this anyway. So if you like this one, make sure you subscribe for the next one. Thank you a lot again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's night. Hopefully, I'll see y'all in the next one.